But my prediction tonight is Steelers by 30. And I know that's impossible, which brings us into impossible. I clicked too far. So today we're going to be talking about impossible, all right? So if you turn your Bibles to Mark 6, I'll get you caught up to speed. So we're going to be learning about the feeding of the 5,000. It's in Mark 6:31, in case you need the verse. But let me give you a little bit of backstory. So the disciples are sent out in pairs before this. Jesus says, go out in pairs, go do ministry throughout the people. And so the disciples go out, and they're doing these wonderful things, whether it's healing or whether it's baptisms, all this kind of stuff, and they're doing it in Jesus' name. But then they're wanting to come back. And as they're coming back, John the Baptist is beheaded. He's killed, so one of their friends has been killed. And so they all meet up with Jesus. And so they're hanging out with Jesus, and Jesus says to them, you know what, let's get out of here. We're going to go to a desolate place. We're going to go hang out, just us guys. We're going to have some fun. I want to hear all about what you guys are doing, because you guys are doing great things. And so I want to hear about that, because that's awesome. And so that's what they do. They get in a boat. They go across the sea. But as they're going across the sea, they see a crowd gathering at the other shore. If you didn't know, I'm kind of getting into the story as well now. And so they get to the other side, and there's a big crowd. And so, you know, they were going for some me time. But instead of Jesus saying, hey guys, we're going for some me time, he gets out of the boat, he starts preaching to them. He sees the lost crowd, he sees the sheep that need their shepherd. So he starts preaching to them. He starts teaching them. And then as time goes on, the day gets later, the crowd's getting hangry. So Jesus is like, all right, disciples, go feed them. Figure it out, go feed them. And so the disciples have no idea what to do, because that's impossible to them. How are we going to feed 5,000 men, plus women and children? So we're really looking at anywhere from 15 to 20,000 people. And they're thinking to themselves, how are we going to do that? That's never been done. We're 12 guys. There's no way that we can do it. I mean, I could, because I got pizza rolls and corn dogs in my freezer, but they don't. So they're all worried about that. That's impossible, Jesus. And so Jesus says, all right, go out and find what you can. And so they come back to him, bringing the loaves, and the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he says, all right, let's do this. And if I'm the disciples at that point, I'm still like, it's impossible, dude. There's no way. No way. Because it's never been done before. They've never had the opportunity to see somebody feed 20,000 people with nothing, really. And so then it gets done. And the disciples are all kind of like, what just happened? What just happened? That was impossible. That was a miracle. A miracle is something that is impossible that has happened. Are you guys in Mark 6:31? Cool. All right. So in Mark 6:31, it says, and he said to them, the disciples, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure to eat. And then they went away in a boat to a desolate place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they ran there on foot, all from all the towns, and got there ahead of them. So let's think about this for a second. Let's think about the disciples, okay? So the disciples are tired. They've been out doing ministry, and they came back to Jesus. So they're walking. They don't got cars, planes, or anything like that. So they walk back to Jesus, and so they're definitely tired. And then, just as it said, they didn't even have an opportunity to eat. So they're hungry. So everything's compounding on top of it. They're exhausted. They're pumped up too. Like, you can't forget about that. You're coming back, you're getting ready to talk about all the fun stuff that you just did, all the cool stuff that you just did. So you've got just enough adrenaline to get there. Enough adrenaline to get to Jesus and be like, Jesus, look what we did. Look what we had fun. We did all these crazy things. And then when Jesus tells them, like, let's go away, just us, they've got to be thinking to themselves, you know, man, we're getting alone time with Jesus. It's been months since we've had that. Just us guys. We're going to go out. We're going to have some fun. And that's what they thought. They thought alone time with Jesus, because that's what he said. He said, we're going to go away to a desolate place. Desolate place being somewhere where, you know, there's not going to be people, because there's nothing in that desolate place. That's what makes it a desolate place. And so they're thinking we're going to get some rest and relaxation. We're going to get to hang out and just hear what each person did and think about that. We're going to get to really, really understand what ministry was like for all of us together. Just us guys, getting our rest and relaxation, having our me time. How many times do we hear that about today? Me time, me time, me time. I need my me time. You know, that's exactly what they were thinking. But then they see people start running and gathering on the other side. And I guarantee you, every one of their faces was exactly like that. As soon as you see that first person running, it starts going through your mind like, I hope I don't see that guy on the other side. Like, it sounds bad, but I really hope I don't see you because I don't have the time. I'm too tired. It's been a long, long ministry time. I don't have the energy to do that. I'm too tired. I wish that I could say that was only a problem for the disciples. That was only a problem that they had to deal with. But it's not. When you're in ministry, when you're doing your ministry, you get tired. We have those times where it's just like, you know, I can't do it today. I'm super tired. It's not going to be good if I do it today because I'm super tired. I'm going to probably do more bad than I am good because I'm tired. So you know what we do? We discount the impossible. We discount anything that God's going to do on top of that because of how tired we are. We think to ourselves, you know, we can't do it because we're tired. But we forget that God's with us. So don't discount the impossible when you're tired. Don't do that. Because when you do that, you're counting out every possibility without even giving it a chance. How many times do we hear, do it as much as you can. Give it your best. Give it your 100%. That's been instilled in me since I was about yay tall. My dad said, give it your best. Do it as much as you can. Don't hold anything back. So when you're tired, keep pressing on. Keep moving forward. Keep pressing on, because when you keep pressing on, I guarantee you're going to see things that you didn't expect. That the impossible isn't going to seem so impossible. So then going into Mark 6:34, it says, when he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, he being Jesus. And he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. And when it grew late, his disciples came to him and said, this is a desolate place, and the hour is now late. So, what's the big part of this? He. I want you to look at that. It says, he went ashore. He saw the great crowd. He had compassion. It doesn't say the disciples and Jesus. It says he. It says Jesus did. Jesus saw them like sheep without a shepherd. And so what did he do? He stepped up. Jesus is also tired. He's tired too. Jesus has been out doing stuff. You know, so the disciples, they were tired. They saw their plans ruined. They wanted their alone time, and they were hangry. For some of you guys who don't know what hangry is, that's hungry and angry together. That's what I get very often. That's why I have so many snacks in my office. If you walk in my office and you're hangry, it's all right. I got you. I got fruit snacks. I got all that kind of stuff. But don't take the Scooby-Doo ones. Those ones are way better. So they're hangry, but the big thing is they just don't care. They see that crowd and they're like, why are you here? Jesus, send them away. Like, this is our time. I don't care that they're there. We just did great things. It's okay. Send them away. They'll be fine. But you know, Jesus, he was tired. He saw the opportunity. He saw their need. It says they were like sheep without a shepherd. And so what did he start doing? He started teaching them. Jesus was hungry. Jesus hasn't ate. They have not ate yet as a whole group. But instead of, you know, letting those feelings and emotions control him, Jesus had compassion. He saw the crowd. He didn't think about, wow, I'm so hungry, I could really go for some bread. I could really go for some food before I start teaching these people. He said, no, I see the need right there. I see the crowd right there. And so I'm going to push all that stuff aside. I'm going to push away my tiredness. I'm going to push away my hunger. I'm going to push away all those things that are keeping me from ministering to these people. And so he starts ministering. You know, in this story, I like to think that I'm Jesus. Like, you know, I would do the same thing Jesus did. If I was tired, if I was hungry, and I saw a crowd that needed a shepherd, that I would step up to the plate. That I would, you know, pick myself up. I'd start ministering to the crowd. But I'm not. I'm not Jesus. I'm not even the crowd in this story. I'm the disciples. We are the disciples. We have those same problems that the disciples had. There's many times that we get into doing stuff in ministry and you know, we're tired. We just don't care. We don't have the energy or the strength to do it, so we don't care. We don't give it our 100%. You know, how many of those things on that board right there do we have that happens to us? We're tired. We get our plans ruined. We want our alone time. We get hangry, and we don't care. That happens all the time. It's not just a blip here, a blip there, a blip here, a blip there. It's something that happens pretty frequently. And believe me, I say we because I do the same thing. Nothing that I ever say does not include me because I get tired. I get hangry. And truthfully, sometimes I just don't care. But that doesn't give us an excuse. We don't get to use that as an excuse to not do it just because we don't care. You know, rest isn't a bad thing. You know, getting your me time isn't a bad thing. It becomes a bad thing when you start putting that over Jesus, when you start putting that over living out Jesus' command. Then it becomes a bad thing. But we don't have to live like that. We don't have to live like that. We want to live more like Jesus every single day. So don't discount the impossible when you don't care. The disciples didn't care, but Jesus did. What does that say? Be more like the disciples? Be more like the disciples saying, I don't care about these people here. I've got my own stuff going on. Or does it say, be more like Jesus saying to the crowd, I see you, I see your need, and so I'm choosing that over choosing not caring, over choosing not to be tired. I'm choosing to be with that crowd, to minister to them, because that's what they need. I'm not choosing to be stuck in this stuff over here. I'm choosing to be stuck with the crowd. And so then in Mark 6:36 it says, and when it grew late, his disciples came to him and said, this is a desolate place, and the hour is now late. Send them away to go into the surrounding countryside and villages to buy themselves something to eat. You know, this is one of those parts where I think to myself, you know, the disciples weren't necessarily wrong. They didn't do something bad here. They were thinking ahead. They were like, okay, I see the crowd here. I don't want them walking home at night. I don't want them traveling at night. But I also don't want them sitting here super hungry. So let's send them away because we don't have the equipment or anything like that to be able to feed them. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing that the disciples are doing. They're caring for the crowd. They're like, all right, they need to go eat. So let's send them away. Let's get them safe. Let's keep them still moving. And so, what did they just do? They told Jesus what to do. They said, they didn't say, hey, Jesus, could you send them away? Like, maybe it might be a good idea. They said, no, send them away. This is a desolate place. I know I flip-flopped that, but that's okay. Send them away. We don't have the equipment to do it. We're tired. We're hungry. We don't care. We're not equipped to do this, Jesus. Like, there's no way that we can do this. There's 20,000 people sitting here, and you're thinking, we've done all we can. This as far as my equipment allows me to go. And looking at this list again, I think we do the same thing. We're tired, we're hungry, we don't care, and sometimes we're not equipped. Heck, I'm barely equipped to stand up here and preach to y'all. I was nervous the whole week. I'm still nervous right now because I'm getting to preach God's word to you guys, to say what God is saying to you guys. And that terrifies me. I like to think I'm equipped to be able to lead worship. I like to be able to think that I'm equipped to lead the youth group. But I find out the more that I go in ministry, I'm not. Because I'll never be fully equipped to do this. Because if I try to do it on my own, it isn't going to go well. It requires having Jesus too. So when you're not equipped, think about it for a second. Think about, am I trying to do it all? Am I the one that's pressing on, trying to get everything done? Or am I allowing Jesus to come alongside of me and lead me, to equip me as we go? Like, I give Bob massive props for doing this every single week. You guys are blessed to have him. Really. From the bottom of my heart, I mean it. This is not something that I am super, super good at. Something that honestly, I'm going to say it. It's not something that I super, super enjoy. I like doing my thing. I like leading worship. I like leading the youth group. This is out of my comfort zone. I'm not equipped to do this. Bob is. Bob does this better than just about anybody I know. He led me the whole week. He's on vacation. You know what he did? He still helped me with this. He was tired. He was hungry. He still stepped out to help me. Cared a little bit. I'm not equipped to do this. Truly, I'm not. But none of us are equipped for ministry on our own. That's why it takes faith. That's why it takes trust. That's why it takes saying, God, I can't do it on my own. I need your help. Surrender it to God. There's those times that you just break down, you fall apart. In worship this morning when we were practicing, we're singing, I Speak Jesus, and it hit me like that. This whole week, I've been nervous about doing this. I've been thinking about me. I've been thinking about, what if I say the wrong word? What if I do the wrong thing? But it's not about me. It's not about what I do up here. It's not about what I do right there or even in my office or even here. It's about what Jesus is going to do in this room today. Because when you leave it to Jesus, he's going to do incredible things. Just as we saw, we have hindsight, so 2020. We saw that he fed him. We saw that a miracle happened. So don't discount the impossible when you're not equipped. When you're not equipped, use that as an opportunity to say, all right, God, I can't do it. You're going to have to step up. You're going to have to be the pinch hitter for me because I can't do it. I need you to step in and do it for me because I can't do it. I'm nervous. God, I'm stuck. I can't do it. You can. We've seen it time and time again. We've seen God do incredible things. God, you do it. Take it. Give it to him. Don't be afraid to give it to him. Because I promise you, when you give God something, it's going to come out way better than if you did it. Because we can't do it. We can't. So then in Mark 6:37 it says, but he answered them, you give them something to eat. And they said to him, shall we go buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give them something to eat? So Jesus, turns it back on him. He's like, all right, you do it. You're asking me to do all this stuff. You guys do it. You guys have been out ministering, doing all these cool things. Let's see you do it. Let's see you step out and actually move on what you just did. Let's see you do those cool things. Did the disciples get that? Absolutely not. They said, you want us to do what? You want us to take out $20,000 to feed strangers? Jesus, we don't even have that. What are you talking about? We don't have that much money. We don't have any food. God, we don't get it. You're asking us to do something that's impossible. What do you want us to do? You're saying feed them, but we can't go get all that stuff. We can't do that. We don't have anything to give them. And you're saying feed them. God, I don't get it. They didn't get it. We do the same thing. How many times do we go through ministry or go through even daily life and we just don't get it? It's not a bad thing. It's not wrong to think that way. I don't get it half the time. I get caught up in the, God, I don't know why we're doing this. This kind of seems dumb. I don't get it. I don't see what you're going to do here. I don't get it. I don't see the end goal. I don't see how you're going to use this. I don't get it. God, we don't get it. We see all these things, and we think to ourselves, if I don't get it, I'm not going to try. That's me in math. If I don't understand math, I'm not trying. I hate math as it is. That's why, because I don't get it. So the first thing that I do is I'm like, all right, I'm done. Don't want to worry about it. Don't want to think about it. Don't want to even, if somebody says math, addition, subtraction, multiplication, a little bit of division, we can kind of get that as long as we have a calculator. I just don't care. I don't care for math. I don't care for math the same way that I care for playing my guitar and worshiping. I don't care for just about anything as much as I care about worshiping. I love to worship. Do I get it all the time? No, I don't understand it. I often, when people ask me about worship, I like to talk about, it's this feeling that I have where you know that you're in the presence of God. But I still don't get it. I don't understand that. It's just, when you think about ministry and you think about something and you say, I can't wrap my head around it, that's not a bad thing. Because we have an infinite God. We have finite minds. If I can wrap my head around God, it's not a God that I want to worship. I promise you that. If you can wrap your head around God, that's not a God that you want to worship. Because God is way more than you could ever imagine or think or comprehend. That's the God that I want to worship. So when I don't get it in ministry, that's okay. Because I know God's got me. God's got my back. God's supplying me. We get tired. We get hungry. We don't care. We're not equipped. And we don't get it. But don't discount the impossible when you don't get it. All of those things, don't use them as excuses. Those are not excuses for you to try less in ministry. Those are not excuses for you to try less in certain things. Those are excuses for you to try harder, to lean into God, to say, God, it's yours. I'm here. Do what you want. I'm laying it at your feet. You take over. That's what you can say. Not, God, I'm tired. God, I don't get it, so I'm not going to try. You better just do it all, or else it's not going to happen. Try. Don't discount the impossible when you don't get it. Then in Mark 6:38, it says, and he said to them, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. And when they had found out, they said 5 and 2 fish. So the disciples still at this moment, they don't get it. They're tired, they're hungry, they still don't get it. But you know what? They were still faithful, even when they didn't understand. Even when God said, all right, go do this. And you got to think, when they're bringing that stuff back, it's like, why are we doing this? God, it's 5 little pieces of bread and 2 fish. There's 20,000 people here. Is everybody getting a nibble? Like, there's no way. But they still brought it back to them. They're skeptical. They're doubting the impossible. It's never been done. You know, this is one thing that I think about a lot. Is the glass half empty or half full? How many of you say half full? How many say half empty? That's okay. There's healthy things in both. I'm much more of the overwhelming optimist, so that glass is half full to me. The disciples are probably a little more skeptical. They're more on the half empty. We've got our 5 loaves, we've got our 2 fish. I don't know what you're about to do with this, and I don't think anything's going to come of this. Because God, we've never seen you do anything like this. We've never seen you do the impossible like this. So, we ask the same questions. God, how are you going to fix this? How are you going to help with this? How are you going to take this dark moment that I have and turn it around for something good? Because God, I don't get that. I don't get how you're going to do that. I don't understand it. I don't see how you're going to take this awful thing right here and use it for good. We get stuck like that. We get stuck in dwelling in those bad times that we can't see past them to look at the possibility of what God will do. We see that glass is half empty. That, God, it is what it is. There's nothing, no good that can come out of it. Nothing good can come out of that. How are you going to do that? Favorite question, how? That's my favorite question. I like to plan ahead a little bit. I like to be able to wrap my head around what we're doing. I like to be able to say, all right, if we got a problem, this is how we're going to tackle it. Instructions. I love building Legos. That's one of my favorite things. I'll read that instruction page the whole way through. Some people, like my little brother and my older brother, they don't. They like to just build it and then kind of guess at the end. And that's why their ships always come off just a little weird and fall apart. But I like to follow those instructions. And so when God says, you're going to do this, but he doesn't say how, I'm like, I'm lost. I'm out. I can't. I need to be able to know how we're doing it, why we're doing it, what we're doing it for. So I fall in that same boat of getting stuck on the how, getting stuck on the why. Being able to use those excuses that we just saw of being tired, hungry, exhausted, not getting it, and don't care. Being able to use those excuses just because, I can't look past. But then in Mark 6:39 it says, then he commanded them all to sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups by hundreds and by 50s. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to the heaven and said a blessing and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples to set before the people. And he divided the 2 fish among them all. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces in the fish. And those who ate the loaves were 5,000 men. God, it happened. The impossible happened. That everything that we just thought of that was remotely impossible just happened. You took 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish and fed 20,000 people. I've got to think, if I'm the first disciple that gets stuff from Jesus and he breaks the bread, he hands it to you, gives you the fish, and you're walking around handing out, you've got to be like, why am I going to turn around and go back to him? There's no point. And then you turn around and you see 6 of the other disciples walking past with food, and you're kind of like, okay. You walk back, you get some more, then you go give it out. You give it to this one, you give it to this family, and you keep walking back, and each time, you're still like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. God, you're about to do a miracle. You're taking stuff that I could have never dreamed, and you're doing it? It's incredible. It's a miracle. That was impossible. That was absolutely impossible. If you handed me 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish and said, feed everybody in this room, y'all probably wouldn't get a thing because I'd be hungry right now. Guaranteed. There's no way it's going to happen. It's impossible. But he fed every single person. And what does it say? It says they were satisfied. It wasn't just enough where they could keep moving on. They were satisfied and full. God gave them more than what they're expecting. God did more than what they could have ever imagined. God saw that impossible thing and said, that's not impossible. No way that's impossible. Because I'm in control. I see that impossible thing that's stuck in your life, and that's not impossible. Because I'm in control. That hurt, that person who wronged you, that you don't ever want to forgive because it's impossible to forgive them, that's not impossible. Because I'm in control. You know, doing ministry and stepping out, taking that first step and saying, God, this is impossible. I don't see how you're going to do anything with this. God says, that's not impossible because I'm in control. All you have to do is take that first step. You have to trust. You have to have faith. That first step is always the hardest. It's that, oh boy. You take that step and then God's like, look at that, you're walking. And soon enough, you're going to be running with God's help. If you have faith and you trust that what God is going to do is greater than anything that you could. Our God is the God over the impossible. If you see something that you're like, that's impossible, just know God's bigger than that. God is way bigger than that. I said to our youth group many times, God is bigger than the peaks and valleys. Those peaks seem tall. They seem impossible to climb. Those valleys seem very impossible to get down out of. But God is bigger than that. God is still in control. God sees those impossible things and says, no, those aren't impossible. I've got it. I've got it. You just have to trust. You have to say, God, I'm willing to take that impossible thing. That thing that I try to keep it here and take care of it myself because that's all I know how to do. That I want to press on further and further, doing it myself because, I can't let go of that control. You have to be able to take that and say, all right, God, I don't want it anymore. I'm done with it. I'm giving it to you, and you better do something great with it. I know you're going to do something great with it. Better than if it came out of my own doing. Because you are greater than anything I'll ever do. You're the God over the impossible. All you have to do is trust him. You have to be able to say, God, I trust you. You don't need to say anything else other than, God, I trust you. You're in control. Let's see you do the impossible again. Amen? God,